Good morning, members, and welcome to this meeting of the Harbours Subcommittee. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be made available for viewing through our council website. I've got a wee bit of feedback in the mic. I'll just give Abby a wee second to take a look at that. Is that better now? Yep, that sounds better. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be made available for viewing through our council's website. Members may notice that when calling members to speak, I will refer to them formally using their title, e.g. Councillor Smith, so that it is clear who are councillors speaking and who, by the process of elimination, the officers are. Remote participants, please follow the good practice guidance, which includes muting microphones and switching off your video when you're not addressing the meeting, writing speak in the Teams chat function when you want to contribute. If you're in the hall, you can do this by your iPhone or iPad, or raise your hand. Please don't repeat contributions already made by other members. No material should be posted in the chat function if it is intended as a part of the discussion. The usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by roll call. If any member has to leave the meeting, please enter leave in the Teams chat function for that period, and please when you come back, write join when you're rejoining the meetings, so that we can keep track on whether the meeting is quorate. All members should speak clearly, taking their time and speaking directly into the microphone when making contributions. When referring to reports, please provide reference to the relevant page and paragraph to allow everyone to follow. Please focus contributions on areas where clarification is required or to propose an alternative to a recommendation. We have several important reports to consider today, and I anticipate we will deal with the business in our usual efficient manner. And members, can I take us to item number 1, our Sedgwick apologies and the Chair's approval of remote participation, which I approve of. Tracy, can you give the Sedgwick apologies, please?
Thanks, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. We've got 7 members present in total, 4 members present in person at the committee buildings in Wigtown, being the Chair, Councillor Dashper, Councillor Ingalls and Councillor Barretti, who is substituting for Councillor Katie Hagman today. 3 members present on Microsoft Teams, being Councillor Brodie, Councillor Johnston and Councillor Stitt. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Tracy. And members, can we move on to item number 2, declarations of interest? Do any members have any declarations they would like to make? I don't see any hands going up in the hall or on Teams, so I'll assume that we don't have any. On to item number 3, the minutes of the previous meeting of March the 20th, 2024. These minutes are for approval. Can we approve these minutes? I've got nodding next to me. So members will approve those minutes of March the 20th, 2024. And on to item number 4, which is Harbours Matters, Financial Position and Current and Proposed Capital Works Report by Interim Assistant Director, Transport and Infrastructure. James McLeod and Paul Jennings are here to assist if members have any questions. I'll open up the meeting to members' debate. If any members that wish to speak, Councillor Ingalls and then Councillor Barretti.
Just a wee bit quicker. I know. I'm getting slow. Just a quick question on page 15 regarding Port William Harbour. It says tenders are yet to be sought for the periodic large-scale dredge of Port William Harbour. Have we got an update on that one?
Over to Paul Jennings.
Yes, the tenders are still to be sought.
All right.
Councillor Ingalls.
Just getting a wee bit of flack for the guys, the fishermen that are using that harbour. I think they seem to think that it's sorely in need of dredging from what they're telling me. Not that I know, but there is a bit of concern that they're having to wait quite a while to get in the mouth of the harbour. So it was really just to flag that up.
This dredging is not to do with the mouth of the harbour. The harbour is perfectly accessible. We dredged the mouth of the harbour in, I think it was early May. It's the back of the harbour where the harbour gradually silts over a sort of 5-year period, and we periodically dredge it at that sort of periodicity, and this year has been programmed to do that. Just haven't done it yet this year.
Councillor Ingalls.
That's great. If I can just come back in on one other point, if that's okay. Concerns are being expressed about the causeway and the stones and the rocks that are falling or closing the gap at the entrance into the harbour. Yeah, is that something that we've looked at in the past or likely to look at, or?
Paul?
There's always a couple of stones that fall down. They're normally moved when we dredge the entrance. They don't significantly close the entrance, and at this time we don't see them as a particular concern.
Thanks, Chair. I'll feed that back. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Councillor Ingleson. We've got our meeting after this meeting at Port William Harbour, so we can go over that offline. Councillor Beretti?
Thank you, Chair. As this is my first and hopefully not my last presentation, visitation at this Harbours Committee, I'd like to ask, because I'm going to be a bit of a daft laddie question here. Looking at page 13 and the expenditure on the various facilities that we have within Dumfries and Galway, and I'm not certain if this is the entire lot, and there has obviously been a gradual increase from 2021 to now. Are most of these increases due to material costs, labour costs? What would be their reason for it?
I've been privy to this in our pre-meeting, and there's a lot of interest and variety here, so I'll pass you over to Paul and James.
So if you look at the expenditure is nearly all maintenance. So revenue expenditures is nearly all these totals are on maintenance. They have crept up due to the increase in maintenance and tenders and wages and that sort of thing, particularly you'll see the jump after the COVID pandemic. There's a couple of anomalies in these figures that I didn't manage to iron out. So I've tried to strip out anything that is not a direct maintenance thing. So in Isle of Whithorn, it looks higher than it should do because we didn't manage to strip out the salary of the staff member that's based there, which I will do in future things. And that's the only real big anomaly in the expenditure based upon those areas. I would like to put all the salaries into the harbour management line so that it gives you greater clarity, so that you can see it's just expenditure on maintenance in these lines. So the Isle of Whithorn one is skewed by that particularly. It's more in line with the Garliston figure if you take that out. But yes, it is generally maintenance.
I'm going to bring in James, and I'll come back to you, Councillor Beretti.
Yeah, I think just for your clarity there, Councillor Beretti, and for yourself, Chair, the Harbour Master or the Harbour Assistant that covers Garliston, Port William and the Isle of Whithorn is one person who does 3 5-hour contracts to cover those 3 harbours. So when Paul says the staff time against the Isle of Whithorn, it's against the Isle of Whithorn, Port William and Garliston. So it just happens to be coded against one of the 3 harbours. But what's, I think, important to see is that the amounts you're looking at for, there's a substantial difference between maintaining Garliston maintenance-wise and Port William, and that's just the nature of the type of harbour there. And also, I think I'm right in saying that the staffing costs for other harbours, some was within harbour management, but I just wanted to check with Paul in terms of the Kirkcudbright Harbour, is that the reason for the large amount on that is because staff costs as well, and is the electricity for those harbours included in those costs? That was it. One. Sorry, we shouldn't have a discussion. That was on income. Yeah. Okay.
Councillor Beretti, would you like to come in?
I'm learning very quickly here, so I'll ask more questions. Page 14. Notice that the income over the last 4 years has obviously fluctuated equally, notwithstanding the fact that we have gone through a COVID crisis, and I notice that some places the income has gone up a lot more. Do you think there's it's a recovery, or do you think we're maybe witnessing something different since COVID? And is there any indication in this that where our income might be going?
Paul?
The one large variable here in Kukubri is that's based upon scallops landing. So that's fish landings, and that's almost all scallops. And it depends upon the type of season that the fishing vessels have with catching scallops. So last year was particularly good, whereas the year before wasn't great. So that's the big variable in Kukubri. The rest of them are all pretty steady and almost in line with inflation.
Thanks for that, Paul. Councillor Bray.
It's interesting you've said that. Would you put that down to a seasonal pattern in climate, given I'm one of the climate councillors, so I'm interested in this variation.
Paul, James?
I have no idea. All I know is how much they've landed and or declared they've landed, and we charge them a percentage of the landing, and that's our income. We do that to try and cover the cost of maintenance for that quayside and harbour.
James?
I mean, it is possible, Chair, Councillor Moretti, that the vessels can choose other places to land, you know, across the sort of north of England, the Isle of Man and Kukubri. So there might be fluctuations associated with a different route that they take. So it may not be that they're catching significantly more nationally or in that area. They're just choosing to land in different places. So there will be various fluctuations. They have, as you are aware, a fish processing facility there. So, you know, if they can bring it there, they don't have to they don't have to carry it from road from Stranraer if they land at Stranraer. So,
Councillor Moretti?
I'm still learning and I'm still absorbing all this information, so the next time I won't have to ask these questions. But no, that's very interesting, and I will keep my eyes on the climate scenario, because I do think that will impact our fishing and fish stocks and fish trends. One last question. On page 15, you've got pressure washer and trailer tenders received. Is this something we're buying, or is it something we're bringing in as a contract and then not keeping?
The pressure washer trailer is something we have purchased. We have just received it literally last week, and it is for maintaining all the slipways and steps around our harbour network. So it's so we've got ready access to it, and those need to be cleaned regularly for a safety issue, and that's what we've got it for.
I have exhausted my questions on item 4.
Thanks for that, Councillor Bray. We visited Kukubri Harbour last time, and we saw what they do with the pressure washers. Rather than upgrading to, is it a carbon fibre or alloy or something like that, we keep the wooden pontoons, and because they get slimy, they need regular maintenance, so that's why we've done that. Have I got that in a nutshell, gentlemen? Yep. Thanks for that. Councillor Brodie.
Thanks, Chair. Just start off with thanking the finance people for getting more detailed information, which I requested last time. I think it's important that we have a clear picture of which of the harbours are self-sustaining and which ones are breaking even or making a surplus. Which I think it's important that we do that and have an objective of making them all self-sustaining. That's why I say I think we really need to know what the full cost of running the harbour is, including staffing costs. So, for example, if there's a harbour observer covered in 3 harbours, then we should be able to sort of have a reasonable estimate of what has been spent on each harbour there. I think stripping out the staffing costs, but I think the report should contain what these costs are for observers and have a reasonable stab at what is being spent on each harbour. And it's got harbour management cost is our biggest expenditure, £174,000. So there should be an explanatory paragraph where we know how the duties are spread across the harbours. So I think it is important that we have still information so we can see if the harbours are self-sustaining or not. And I notice I noted the explanation of why Garliston maintenance costs are a lot lower than the other harbours. At one stage in the past, we discussed about involving the communities in partnership in running the harbours, so that we could reduce our costs. I don't know how far communities are involved in actually helping us to operate our harbours. We'll get feedback on that as well. Thank you.
Paul, James, would you like to answer that, or would I ask you again? Sorry, Councillor Brody, could you be quite specific on the question there, because there's a lot of information there. Just so that we can get
First
it right.
First question is on, can we have robust information which shows exactly how our harbours are performing, including staffing? That's the first question. And the second one is on community involvement.
Thanks for that, Councillor Brody. James McLeod.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Brody. Yeah, I mean, I think, this was, I think, requested by yourself and other members at previous committees for further breakdown, and we can refine this in a future committee report and give more detail on exact costs of running each harbour against the income that's generated. Obviously, the smaller harbours generate a very small amount of income. It's really just Kirkcudbright and Stranraer where we have quite a large amount of leisure and commercial that we're seeing a larger income, and that's where our staff. We have full-time staffing at Kirkcudbright and Stranraer to reflect the additional demand on the service. But certainly there are more costs involved, for example, in maintaining Port William Harbour, which requires dredging, than we would require at Garliston and the Isle of Whithorn, which don't require that. And I think it's interesting to note that in terms of dredging licences, these are expensive to obtain. I think we're talking a number of £1,000 per licence, and it's only valid for 3 years. So there is, I think it's £15,000 for a licence, and that's just a licence. That's not the testing of the material that we have to undertake before we do the dredge in case there's any contamination within it. So that's quite a lot of money for Port William in terms of maintaining the harbour. In terms of community involvement at the harbours, realistically that's quite limited. In as much as, from a safety point of view, our harbour observer at the 3 Markers harbours is obviously trained within the harbour service to undertake the daily checks, the weekly checks and the like. So beyond that, they're not actually doing a significant amount of work. They are just an observer on those 3 harbours. For works of maintenance, we would obviously want trained staff as well. So when Paul referred earlier to going down and power washing, slipways and steps and things like that, that's staff from Stranraer Harbour that would generally do that work. Potentially somebody from Kirkcudbright Harbour could do that as well. So we've changed our operating procedures in the last 2 or 3 years to use more casual staff at Stranraer Harbour and one at Kirkcudbright Harbour, and that's augmented 2-person operations like some of the cleaning is required to be. But certainly we can have a look again at how we show the cost for running each harbour and how we show the income and separate out a little bit more of the detail around, say, Paul's costs, which would be across all 5 harbours, whereas Sean's cost would be only across 3 harbours in the Markers.
Thanks for that, James. And maybe, as Councillor Brody's request, a little bit of narrative to go with that chart. Am I right with that, Councillor Brody? Have we caught what you are looking
for?
I
think so. I'm happy with the assurance that we'll get more detailed or more exact figures and the narrative, as you say, Chairman. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Brody. One of the questions I've got here is with Port William Harbour. You've just mentioned the dredging licences. How do you account for the dredging licences in the papers? Are they just in 1 year, for example, how we see an uplift of the revenue expenditure at Port William being 19,000 this year, or do you take that revenue and split it over years, the 3 years that licence works for?
The actual licence cost goes into a single year, so you'll see a little blip every 3 years when we have to reapply for the licence of about 15,000, and then then the rest of the years is the ongoing dredging costs, which are on top of that. So this year you'll see we have to apply for Kirkcudbright's dredging licence, which is another £15,000 that's going into this year. So, and whereas Kirkcudbright has to be done every year, so it will go into the revenue rather than the capital, because capital has to be over 5 years, so it has to go into revenue. So you'll see a little blip on the smaller expenditure harbours like Port William. It's more acute, where you see the blip where it goes up. So last year we had to reapply, and whereas Kirkcudbright, when we come to this time next year, you'll hardly see a difference in the figure because it's a much bigger turnover there.
Thanks for that, Paul. And then it's another question based on Councillor Beretti's questions earlier on, which is the catch that we've got landing in Kirkcudbright, for example, and how it's gone up and down and fluctuated. Are we competitive, or are we allowed to change that rate that we charge for per tonne that's landed in Kirkcudbright?
We do look around, and we can change it. It's totally up to us as a harbour to reflect or to change the fees. All I'd say is the fees have to reflect, we have to try and cover a harbour should pay for itself, as Councillor Brodie says, and that's what we're trying to achieve. But obviously if we go too high, we'll become non-competitive and that won't work. So most harbours charge between 1% and 2%, we're charging 2%, so we're at the higher end, so we don't have much scope for going up.
Right, thanks for that, Paul. I see Councillor Brodie's hand. Sorry, can I bring in James before I go to Councillor?
Thank you, Chair. It was just to add a little bit to Paul there. Obviously, it isn't just about what the council does in terms of operating its harbours, and I don't really need to tell you this, but clearly we've got a fish process, shellfish processing facility in Kirkcudbright, and that supports jobs in the economy and things like that. So there is also that very fine balance between what else that Dumfries and Galloway as a region gets from having its harbours, in operation. So we acknowledge that it is maybe slightly different from a fully commercial operation like a Forth Ports or a Clyde Ports or something like that. So there is a little bit of a balance there when we're looking at that 1%, 2% landing fees on our commercial operations.
My thoughts could we lower it and attract more in, but that's another debate for another day. But Councillor Brodie, you've had your hand up. I'm not sure if it's a legacy hand.
There's just a final question from me. It's just obviously we've got fees for a designated person, so I'm just checking whether they're included in the harbour management figures. Thanks.
Paul, James?
Yeah, Chair, through yourself. Yes, Councillor Brodie, the designated person, we cover their fees within harbour management costs, so it's not a significant fee, relatively speaking, and as you'll find from the later paper, gives us confidence of the safe operation of the harbours.
Thanks for that, James.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Brodie. Yep. Councillor Beretti.
Thank you, Chair. This is my last question on this item. On page 23, I noticed that you've got the charges per kilowatt hour at the various locations. One of the things that's interesting me is that it doesn't specify what our daily rates to the utility companies are, so the connection charge. Now, do all of these come in under one contract, or are they all separate contracts for the daily rate? Plus, leading on to that, which it did actually occur to me, and mentioned before, I'm one of the climate councillors, what are we looking at for future reference, in the sense of future planning when it comes to bringing electrification to the ports, so that if we see that there'll be legislation to stop let's say boats using their engines but having to use electric means to maintain the boat whilst in harbour? Is that something which the Harbours Authority has looked at?
Thanks for that, Councillor Beretti. One of the things that I'll say is that there's a bit of narrative just below the chart that says that all the charges are the actual supply costs from electricity companies. We can't actually add any profit onto electricity charges, but I'll hand over to officers.
The charges is made up of 4 components. There are Three components are non-consumption charges, which are specific to the location. They're even specific to the time of day. But we average them out over a year. And then the fourth component is the actual kilowatt hour we're charged. And that is specific to the location as well. They're all from the same supplier. The council has a single electricity supplier, but it varies dramatically by location based upon the non-consumption charges, which are actually quite complicated. So the chair was quite correct when he said we only charge what it costs us, and it's just a breakdown of those four, or it's a combined of the four charges averaged over a year and sold at that level to recover our costs. And it's simply that thing. And on the latter charge of have we predicted what the electrification of seagoing vessels, a simple answer is no, because at the minute there is no demand, so there's no prediction about what the supply could possibly be. And if we were to try and increase our capacity at the ports in prediction of that, that would significantly increase the non-consumption charges because they're nearly all based upon what capacity you have. So until we know what the potential capacity is that would be required to be provided, then we don't try and raise that capacity because it seriously impacts upon the non-consumption charges that would have to be applied. So this year we actually decreased our capacity requirement at Kakubri, which significantly decreased the charges that we would have to pass on to the customer because we didn't need that additional capacity at this present moment in time. So it is under constant review to make sure we are in charge, like our customers, what it costs us.
Thanks for that, Paul. James, I see you want to comment on that.
I think, thanks, Chair. I think there was just one final question from Councillor Barretti, which was around running the engines of the boats at the reason why we expect them to hook up to the supply. So the boats do obviously have generation capability themselves for when they're away from the harbour side. The reason why we invested in the quayside power supplies was principally for that, because prior to that, a number of years ago, the fishing vessels were bringing in diesel generators and parking them on the quayside to run the boats while they were quayside, and that obviously has quite a lot of noise pollution and the like. So actually, it's taken a while to get a reliable electricity supply, but with a bit of effort, what you need to understand is that in terms of the vessels that use that, for safety, our electricity supply has lots of breakers in it if there's an overload of power. The boats themselves, they have some unusual style of electricity usage within the boats, and sometimes when they turn the power supply on, it will break. A generator wouldn't kick out, wouldn't stop working, but the quayside breakers would stop, and then all the power goes off on the harbour side. So we've taken a while to get that resolved, and now we're confidently operating Kakubri quayside with a power supply that the vessels are finding reliable, which avoids the need for generators and obviously makes it a more pleasant environment for the public access in the harbour.
Thanks for that, James. Councillor Barretti?
Yeah, I think James hit the very last point, which was where I was in effect going, is that the ambience of in and around the harbours is improved by the fact that there's no emissions from diesel generators. And that is, as we do go forward in the electrification process, is where we're wanting to go. So when it comes to the climate group, these are things which we are going to be looking at for future investigation. And it's part of the Council's commitment to try and reduce our overall footprint in net zero. So I think it's important that we bear in mind that this is going to have to be done in the future, and there may well be legislation that will come out of Scottish Parliament or whatever. But if we have a heads up and a start, then that would be great for Dumfries and Galloway because we can get there before everyone else.
Thanks for that, Councillor Barretti. I don't think that needs an officer response, does it? No. Just a clap. Thanks for that, Councillor Barretti. Have we got any other members wanting to speak on this item? I'm not seeing any hands in the room, and I'm not seeing any hands on Teams. So members, can we move on and go to the recommendation? The recommendation are members are asked to note the Harbour's financial status in relation to the 2024-2025 budgets, approved by the Communities Committee on the 2nd of April 2024, as detailed in section 3.1. Are members happy to note? Yep, members are happy to note. Members, can we move on to item number 5, which is report on Port Marine Safety Code review, audit undertaken by the designated person, update report by Interim Assistant Director of Transport and Infrastructure. James McLeod and Paul Jennings are here to assist members if we have any questions. An addendum has been issued separately to the papers, which is the designated person in the audit summary. And let's see, I think we've got a... Yep. So I've got a bit in my notes here. So it's subject to the debate. Can we move? No, actually. So I'll open this up to debate. Members, do we have any questions? Right, okay, members. These notes aren't great. So, members, will we agree to receive a verbal update on the Port Marine Safety Code audit conducted on the 14th to the 15th of May 2024 by the designated person? Do members agree to receive a verbal update? I'm getting nods within the room. Councillor Brett, you put your hand up there.
Verbal update is fine, but I would rather also see a written report so that it can be distributed. I could quite easily forget the verbal update after 10 seconds.
I think, well, we did get the report distributed to us, didn't we? James?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so we would normally give a verbal update because we would have expected the designated person to also attend Harbour Subcommittee and be able to give that detail. With the change of dates and the like, we've actually got a written update that replaces the verbal update. So the document that's been presented, and it would have gone to all Harbour Subcommittee members, and perhaps, Councillor Barretti, you've not received it, being a substitute. So a copy of it is sitting here, and I will pass you my copy. And I can share Paul's if there are any questions on it. So we don't need to provide a verbal update because the update on that is, so that will be part of the minute of the meeting. And a record of it. But what I would add is that there will be a full report coming out from the designated person in due course, and we will share that obviously with all members of Harbour Subcommittee. It's just the timings of their work done in May and this committee that we didn't have a chance to publish before the papers were published.
Thanks for that, James. Councillors, have we got any questions? I want to give Councillor Brett a bit of time to absorb this. Is it worth, James and Paul, you giving us a very brief verbal update, just with all the headline points, so Councillor Brett can be abreast of the situation?
So every year the designated person basically audits how we run our harbours, and the designated person is there to, on your behalf, double check I'm doing my job. So he's looking at the whole strategic running of the harbours and also the operational side, which I am responsible for. So in his interim report, if I'm to summarise, there are very few pickups and just a few small areas where we just need to look at the way the strategic direction goes and make sure we build them into the marine safety management system as we go along. There's a couple of small technical things, particularly in risk assessment, about dynamic risk assessment, but other than that, I would like to say that's as clean a bill of health as we're likely to get. So congratulations to you all.
I read it and I thought it was quite a good document. I thought it was quite positive. Councillor Brett, have you got any questions so far?
No, not yet.
No. Have we got any other questions? Councillor Dashper?
Yeah, I'll ask a question. Just a little sort of nerdy question, I guess. Page 29, 1.3 talks about our non-statutory marine assets, like Killstay Bay Slip, Hock and Malg Slip and such. I'm just wondering, the council, I'm assuming it doesn't use these for any sort of purpose, does it? And if not, is it worth holding on to them? Thanks.
Paul?
The non-statutory marine assets are we've got 4. Annan Quayside, or the northern half of the Annan Quayside, is 1. So we're the harbour responsible for the maintenance of that, and these non-statutory assets are going to be included in the Port Marine Safety Code, so they'll be part of the audit ongoing in the future. So Annan Quayside is one of them. Glencape or Quay is another. And then there are 2 slipways, one just north of Dromore and one at the Cock Inn just north of Port William. So we just need to, really, it's just saying we need to list these within the Marine Safety Management System and then demonstrate we're looking after them correctly. So that it's really, we're doing that anyway, but we just need to build it into the paperwork. That's all it means. And then we're compliant with the Port Marine Safety Code when it changes later in the year.
Thanks for that, Paul. Does that answer the question, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe not something for this committee today to think about. I'm just wondering, you know, when the council's so short of money, if there's maybe value in selling these assets or whatever as physical estate, as a slip. Just food for thought, really. Thanks.
James?
I mean, Chair, it's a fair observation. I mean, I think realistically the slipways in Luce Bay are probably pretty insignificant in terms of the impact upon the local authority. We may decide if there was a significant damage to one of them that, you know, we would return and say, is this something we want to invest in rebuilding? And at that point we may cut our losses and say no, or we may say yes, the community uses it a lot and it's worth spending 20,000, you know, reconcreting a slipway. That would be certainly. But I think at this time, when simply we're looking at an infrequent check and perhaps some power washing or that sort of thing, Annan Harbour is a slightly different matter. It's obviously now an element of community asset there as well. It's supporting infrastructure that the council has, and you know we would have a duty there to maintain that anyway, and passing it on is an option as a community asset transfer. I suspect I don't know the exact details of that kind of approach, but the other ones I think are pretty insignificant in terms of ongoing maintenance. So probably better for the community that we retain.
Thanks for that, James. Thanks for that question. That was a good question, Councillor Ashworth. Councillor Beretti, I've seen you highlighting and I see you've got a smile on your face if you want to ask something.
I'm afraid that's worrying the officers if they see me highlighting something. On page 5 of this report, item 12, it talks about the course which all staff have got to go through, and I'm fully aware that there are very few of these courses available, and I was also aware that they would end up being in Southampton for historic reasons. Is this going to present a problem going forward in the future, that you will be able to find a valid training course rather than sending staff down to Southampton or having someone come up here? Because the last time I did that, the person came up, I was the only person on the course, and that they were shocked.
Paul?
So the course mentioned in paragraph 12 of that report, it's actually a non-compulsory course. We just have to demonstrate that the staff are trained to an appropriate level, and the designated person is suggesting that attendance on that course would do that. But we've got to weigh up our budget in relation to Harbours compared to someone like Forth Ports, who wouldn't bat an eyelid at spending thousands of pounds sending out someone there for a course. So there may be a better way for us to maintain that person's, the individual staff member's competency rather than sending to that particular course. So that's something we need to look at and weigh up our options. But with the staff, we do need to demonstrate the staff maintain their competency.
Thanks for that, Paul. James, you would like to come in?
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to give an example where we've worked. We've done some work with Stenner and P&O on some rope handling courses for staff in our harbour service. So to know how safely to ensure a boat is tied up safely. And we're not talking small, sailing craft. We're talking larger fishing vessels where there's quite a lot of tension on the lines back to the quayside. So that's something obviously that Stenner and P&O have a lot of experience in because they have large vessels tied up. And we undertook some training with them. So there was no formal certificate as such given, but we gave the confidence and the competence within our staff to a level that the designated person felt was an appropriate level of training, and that gives confidence in our staff at Stranraer and Kirkcudbright that they know where to how to put a vessel onto bollards and how to ensure safety working in and around, you know, high tension lines and the like. So we can look to options to train our staff without necessarily sending them to Southampton as you'd referenced.
So, Councillor Brett, can I just nick in on a wee point just there? So, if we're already working with Centreline and P&O and sort of larger companies in the area, can we piggyback on their training? Because I imagine they'll be spending that money to do the training. Is that possible? Would we make any savings with that? On it?
We can if they're... We always have an open dialogue about sharing of courses and that sort of thing with those companies, and they've always been very supportive, and we will support them. Indeed, we did earlier with a different course. It's the specific nature of this subject matter that he's alluding to for that particular course, which makes it slightly more problematic. But we will find a workaround, and if they need to go on that course, then that's what we'll do. But I'm looking for an option that may be more suitable to our budget.
Thanks for that, Paul. And Councillor Brett, you will want to come back.
Again, it's improving my knowledge of this sector, and I think it's interesting that you're trying to, as you said, you're trying to find a workaround given the budgetary restraints that we might be going through over the next few years. So welcome what has been said, and it's reflective of the times that we're living in.
Thanks for that, Councillor Brett. With no other members looking to speak, I'll take us to the recommendations, which are 2.1. We've received our verbal update and our written update, and we digest that. And 2.2, to receive further updates on progress within electronic monthly reports at future meetings of the subcommittee as detailed in paragraphs 4.6. So members, I'll move us on to item number 6, which is the Harbour Service Stranraer Harbour Revision Order Update. Report by Interim Assistant Director for Transport and Infrastructure. James McLeod and Paul Jennings are here to assist. The members have questions. Just let me take a wee look at my papers. So, members in point 2 are asked to agree to receive a verbal update. Are we happy to take a verbal update? I'm getting thumbs up. Paul?
So the Harbour Revision Order, we concluded the formal consultation in late February. There was one objection. We noted the objection. I worked very closely with the legal department. We responded to each point raised in that objection, and that was on the 22nd of April, and they have yet to say whether they will continue to object or withdraw that objection. We have chased them, well, I personally have chased them nearly every week in the interim. The last time was on Friday, where we've tried to escalate it through Transport Scotland to put pressure on, but they just say the objector needs to respond in their own time and then say whether they will accept our acknowledgement of their objection and anything we intend to do about it or not. It's a Transport Scotland process, so we can't influence it in that respect, and the process has no timescale for responses. So all we can do is wait for this body to respond to our response to their objection.
Thanks for that, Paul. James, do you have anything to add? Or?
I mean, I sense your frustrations. We are frustrated as officers as well with the situation we're in, and we acknowledge that that's the nature of the beast. And with support from legal services, I know Carolyn's on this meeting, and the legal services, the manager there as well, has been incredibly supportive of what we're doing and pushing back on this. So I would hope we would get some response from this objector to where we're at, and we can move that forward with Transport Scotland. Ultimately, it will come down, if the objection remains, it ultimately comes down to Transport Scotland then to make that final decision on whether the order progresses or not, and whether So, I mean, we see everything we're doing there as positive towards the support of the Stranraer Water Sports Association and other, leisure users of the southern half of the loch. So we see it as a real positive for the Stranraer area in general. So we're hopeful that it will progress through, but we can only just apologise for the time that it's taken at the moment. But it is a little bit out of our hands.
No need for an apology to us. But we've got it in. We're just being held up by other forces, and I think every member here can appreciate that. Councillor Ingalls.
Absolutely share your frustrations. When I came into council in 2017, I think this was on the Harbours Subcommittee first meeting as well, so it seems to be taking forever. Thanks, Chair.
I know the feeling, Councillor Ingalls. I've had the same frustrations. I know Councillor Hagman has a lot of frustrations over this one as well. It's just something that we just need to wait and see from other organisations. So, members, do we have any more questions? Councillor Dashbar.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this was discussed at the last meeting as well about the relationship with Stena Line in terms of giving them access. And I know that we couldn't discuss the ins and outs of that due to commercial sensitivities. But just to clarify, if once that is agreed, will members as duty holders be given sight of that arrangement in confidence? Thanks.
Paul?
Absolutely. There's no reason why not. It's just a simple. It's just it is technically outside of legal parameters. It's a very simple agreement that we're the statutory harbour authority for the water-based area. They have a lease agreement under the water, and it's just to allow them access to that area. So if they need to maintain their lease, and it's just a simple arrangement to ensure that can happen going on into the future. And it's just a simple arrangement. We just need to agree on the technical wording of that agreement.
Thanks for that, Paul. So, members, I don't see any other hands in the room or online. So I'll take us to the recommendations, which are 2.1, note the current position with Dumfries and Galloway Council Stranraer Harbour Revision Order as detailed in paragraphs 3.1 to 4.4. Are members happy to note? Yes, we're noted. We've already agreed to receive a verbal update in 2.2, so we'll move on to 2.3. Note the progress on the development of the associated general directions as detailed in paragraphs 4.5 to 4.7. Are members happy to note? No. We've noted. So, members, we're on to our last item of business, which is any other business deemed urgent by the Chair due to the need for a decision. I've not been notified of any urgent business. All right, and I'm to remind members that we are going to Port William now to visit the harbour. And James, would you like to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Just before we finish up, I thought it was worth letting members know, because obviously we're moving now into the next Harbour Subcommittee will be after recess. Between now and then, the Harbour Service, in conjunction with principally the Fire and Rescue Service, but pretty much everybody else who can put a blue light on their vehicle, we will be doing an exercise, a live play exercise at Stranraer Harbour on the 13th of August. And there is an open invite to all elected members, but principally elected members from the Harbour Subcommittee. So we undertook one of these a year and a half ago at Kirkcudbright. There was about 60 people involved in the exercise, and in that case we had a fire on a fishing vessel, and there was not actually a fire on the fishing vessel, obviously, but there was smoke generation on the fishing vessel. Fire and Rescue rescued a number of sort of life-size dummies from it, but we actually put a real person in the mud and did a fire and rescue mud rescue from Kirkcudbright Harbour as well. The exercise we're looking at Stranraer Harbour is a little bit different, and we're working very closely, specifically with Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, to do an exercise there, and we'd be delighted if you were able to attend. We'll send out more details close to the time. It would be a Tuesday, whatever the 13th is of August evening. It's a Tuesday evening. And we're also going to take that opportunity. And when we've talked about our relationship with Stenner and P&O, one of the things our staff often do is attend oil pollution exercises at Stenner and P&O facilities, because clearly they're in Loch Ryan as well. We've never really done an oil pollution, although we have a response authority. We have a company that we work with, and we tender this every few years, that will respond in the case of a large oil pollution event. We haven't exercised. We've kind of relied on Stenner and P&O, and we piggyback onto theirs. But on the same day, in the afternoon, our oil pollution response company, that we call-off company that we have, will also be in attendance in the afternoon to put out some sort of oil pollution spill equipment within the harbour area, so that you know, officers from our own team, but also people from the fire and rescue, police and the lights can see the kind of things that we will be doing at that time. So it will be a kind of afternoon, evening session, and hopefully the weather will be good. And because fire and rescue are involved, there definitely will be food available afterwards as well, because we don't get these guys out unless we feed them well. And to be fair, they are all retained. I mean, the majority of them are retained fire staff. So it was just raising that on your sort of radars for if you're not away in the summer at that time, we'd very much welcome you there.
Thanks for that, James. Are we involved in that as active members of that training or of that process, or are we just observers in that?
Very much just observers, like myself. I mean, I wouldn't be. I'll be there as exercise director along with fire and rescue, but I'll certainly not be directing the response to this. I will be making sure that we will control the exercise in as much as, you know, there'll be opportunities to stop it if something goes wrong, you know, of one of our partner agencies. So we will have the RNLI there. We will have HM Coast Guard. There will be police. There will be Scottish Ambulance Service. We'll probably have. We may even bring in Galloway Mountain Rescue. We used them last time with their drone, so we could get some drone footage of what was going on. Yep, and fire and rescue, of course. So there's quite a lot of people involved there, but no, each will have their own kind of lead officer with, you know, managing the exercise. So we would prefer that you didn't talk. I mean, obviously this is public. With the exercises being said around, but prefer that this remains reasonably. Not confidential, but, you know, it's for the staff involved in it. The less they know about it, the more they're turning up at a good training event for them. So, but no, we're not allowed to direct them. Okay.
No, I was more hoping that I was going to be able to ditch the suit and don a pair of overalls for the day.
We can provide you with PPE. We can provide you with a vest. You can certainly come and observe. No, absolutely, and it is important. You are the duty holders under the Port Marine Safety Code, so, you know, seeing that we're exercising correctly is important, and it's a good opportunity for you to meet the kind of people we would work with during an emergency event. Absolutely.
Councillor Beretti has a question, or maybe just wants to see me in overalls. I don't know.
I think the chair would have to do quite a few health and safety courses before he could volunteer for anything, but I would potentially suggest that if he wishes to get stuck in the mud in the pier, then that might be something we could arrange. But I'm just wondering if I am allowed to come to this as a sub-member. Thank you.
I mean, what we will be doing with our colleagues in the road service, we will set up, as we did at Kakubri, pedestrian barriers around the area, the safe area. So there will be an opportunity, particularly from the Breastworks car park, and to view, and probably make it from the West Pier as well. We will set up areas so that people can see what's going on. That seems only fair. We had I was looking at Paul, he wasn't involved in the one 2 years ago, but we had quite a lot of people watching the event at Kakubri for sure. So, and we will publicise it before the event so people don't start phoning to say there's a fire on a boat or there's something happening, something like that.
Thanks for that, James. Members, do we have any other questions? I don't believe we do. So I'll call this meeting to an end. Thank you for attending. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for joining us, Councillor Beretti, as a sub. It's been good having you. Lots of good questions. And I'll see you in Port William for those who are joining us. Thank you.